So there is no doubt that the 2010s were great for comic book movies. Over this decade, we had a huge surge of Marvel Studios. We were hoping for a surge in the DCEU, but we all know what happened to that. We had the continuation of a 2 decade long X-Men film franchise, but it's about to end in 2020. And we had this complicated story of the Sony Marvel universe. Each of these franchises have produced some great movies over the years, such as Avengers Infinity War, Wonder Woman, Logan, and Into the Spider-Verse. Those movies will live on for many future generations to enjoy and hopefully inspire future filmmakers to make even better films. But as we look ahead to the 2020s, there is a lot to be excited for. And as the 2010s come to an end, I wanted to give my top 3 picks for the best comic book movies of this decade. Number 3, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I was debating between 3 different movies for this pick: Logan, Spider-Verse, and The Winter Soldier. I actually never seen Logan before, so I wouldn't know what to say about it, but I know it's a great comic book movie. I have seen Spider-Verse before, but I really don't like it very much. And as for The Winter Soldier, I've probably watched it about 8 times. I was never a fan of Captain America before this movie. I think this movie made Captain America cool. This whole movie is cool. There's so much positive things to say about this movie that I will be here forever if I were to state those things. I think this movie feels like a comic. It's got great action scenes, well fleshed out characters, a great script, a beautiful ending, and it's very inspiring. After the first time I watched this movie, I literally said to myself that was awesome. Just like I say to myself when I'm done reading a great comic book. You can't go wrong watching this movie. You'll enjoy it, you'll have fun with it, and you'll end it feeling very entertained. Number 2, Marvel's The Avengers. Now this is the movie that catapulted the genre of comic book movies. Yeah, the popularity was already there because of The Dark Knight, but it wasn't until this movie that people really started to care about these movies and these characters. I strongly believe if this movie didn't do as good as it did or just never got released, then Avengers Endgame would not be the highest grossing movie of all time. And even though this movie does have some imperfections, it still showed that comic book movies can be cool and worth your time. In my opinion, this movie jump-started the MCU. It deserves all the credit for earning that new huge fan base that the MCU has today. This is why I believe that this movie is not only one of the best comic book movies of the 2010s, but one of the best comic book movies of all time. And for my number 1 pick, Avengers Endgame. Now I know this movie is not the holy grail of comic book movies or the holy grail of cinema. Avengers Endgame is not a perfect movie by any means. It's got flaws. But that's not to say that I don't think this movie is amazing. To this day, this movie still leaves me stunned. And as a huge Marvel fanboy, this was everything I ever hoped for in a superhero movie. It was a dream come true to see my favorite characters in a on-screen epic final battle. But I will eventually make a more in-depth video about this movie, but for now, I'm going to say that I wholeheartedly love this movie, and I'll praise it to the day I die. And I know not everyone is going to agree, but I know the greater majority will agree that Avengers Endgame is the best comic book movie of the 2010s. So trust me when I say that I hate that all these picks were Marvel movies. I wish that there was a DC movie on this list, but I just feel like hardly any of the DC movies that came out in the 2010s were great. Some of them were great, like Joker and The Dark Knight Rises. They just still weren't the best in my eyes. It's definitely fair to say that Marvel really dominated this decade. And if I had to make a bold prediction, I'd say that DC is going to have a better 2020 decade than Marvel is. But we'll just have to wait and see. Overall, we got the best decade yet for comic book movies, and this genre is in a great place heading forward. Also remember that everything I said in this video is all my opinion. Nevertheless, I believe that these 3 movies were the best comic book movies of the 2010s.